You're listening to the Men in Blazers Media Network, Suboptimal Radio.
To me, the highlight of the match was Jennifer Garner passing out orange slices after the match. I mean, that is true world-class soccer momming right there. And it just makes me feel so much joy about soccer in general because, I mean, we're going back to childhood, right? If we could all just channel our inner child and play with our inner child, like, imagine how good these matches could be.
It's Rog back with another episode of The Women's Game, presented by Paramount Plus. Joining me today, I have a human being whose presence never fails to spark joy, a true icon of the game, and an inspiration to all those who've been lucky enough to hear her wax poetic in pre-game huddles. Also, as we learned last time, an unexpectedly delightful chronicler of rat optimism. From your Portland Thorns, the human hand grenade herself, it's Meghan Klingenberg.
These intros are amazing. Every time. You're saying the intro is amazing. The intro is merely a mirror held up to the person I'm speaking to. You do realise that, right? I sometimes wish I saw myself the way that you see me.
Yin's number one. Kling, honestly, I am so bloody happy to have you back with us. There is such an abundance of quality football right now. Our cup overfloweth. What with the US women's national team smiting all comers, as James Taylor would say, down in Mexico. The Euros creating cacophonous scenes of wonder. The Women's Africa Cup of Nations, Copa America Femenina at the club level, NWSL surging back into action. It's an incredible moment to be alive and to be a fan of this game. These are truly days of miracles and wonder, and we're going to do our best to dig into as much of it as we can. But I want to start with the NWSL because we're exactly midway through the regular season. What an ideal time to reflect. Meghan, you've seen fire, you've seen rain with this league. Has this season shaped up in a way you're expecting it to? How would you rate the vibe so far?
The season is absolutely not shaping up the way that I thought it would. And I think that's pretty much every year. But it's such a fun year because before, when the Thorns and the Courage were dominating the last 4 years in a row, basically 5 years in a row, you had these teams that were running away with the Shield. And this year, I don't think you have one team that's running away with the Shield, and it's going to be a battle till the very end, and it's going to be, we're not entirely sure who it's going to be, and I love it because it's got these fresh players, young players stepping up, doing really well, and it's just been a blast to be a part of this year.
The NWSL scriptwriters are definitely on one this season, and it feels like we talk every bloody week about how tight, how competitive this league is, how a run of a few good games or even a few bad ones can completely alter a team's fortunes, their trajectory. And I'm curious though, halfway through the season, do you still feel like this is anyone's league to win?
I think the really cool part about the NWSL is that it is anybody's league to win, and that's what makes it such an important league and the hardest league to win, in my opinion, in the entire world. And I think you actually see this playing out on the world stage right now. In CONCACAF, you see it playing out in the Euros, you see it playing out all over the world, and it's really cool because I just watched Germany play Spain, and I saw the Germans come out fearlessly against Spain, and they high-pressed them, and they exposed Spain's weaknesses. And that's what the NWSL is about every week. And if you watch Barcelona, you watch, some of the top Spanish teams play, they have a lot of time on the ball. They get to make leisurely decisions. They play beautiful football. They create amazing attacking chances. But then again, they're not getting pressured every single day in training and on the weekend like players in the NWSL are. I think maybe if they were, we might see a different result for Spain against Germany in the Euros.
Space, time on the ball is overrated. The helter-skelter, give the people what they want. And something I do wonder about, there's no relegation in NWSL. Do you think that's part of what makes this league so competitive? Because teams can play with a greater margin of error. They can feel that they can afford to absorb big losses in the pursuit of big wins because they don't fear the bottom of the table in a way that relegation-based leagues do.
This is such a big question, isn't it? This is an even bigger question than the NWSL. This seems to be a question about the U.S. soccer landscape in general, right? But I'm not sure that relegation would work in USA. I think our fans aren't necessarily used to it. I don't think that we have built a second tier or third tier or fourth tier or fifth tier all the way down type of leagues that could sustain that type of relegation. So I think it's something that we just kind of do and deal with. Yeah, you can take chances and that you can go all out every game. It stinks to be in last. Nobody wants to be in last. I think the people think that there aren't any consequences to coming in last when there's no relegation, but there absolutely are. Nobody wants to go to a team. Nobody wants to be traded to a team that is coming in last. Nobody wants to lose every single game. And those are huge consequences. So if you come in last one season, you might be coming in last for 2 or 3 or 4 seasons because you just can't get people to want to play for your club. And that is a huge consequence.
As you say that, one of the big stories in the league right now is confirmation from the commissioner, Jessica Berman, that we will be getting 2 more expansion teams in 2024, 2 new friends. One
Here's
of them
to the West Coast.
God, the West Coast is the best coast. One of them likely to be the revival of the Utah Royals who folded in 2020. The other one, TBD, possibly a Bay Area team, Kling. And I know you said last time that you came on that you don't really think when you face an opponent, you don't really think that much about which specific team you're playing at this point in your career. But do you think about how many teams you're playing against? Expansion teams are great in terms of the growth of the league, but it also means more travel, more scheduling complexity. Unless they add more weeks to the season, probably more midweek games. Is the prospect of that as a player exciting, mildly terrifying, or both?
See, all the above. Absolutely. But I personally believe it's really exciting, especially if they are on the West Coast for incredibly selfish reasons, because then I don't have to travel as much. East Coast teams have to travel more, and I want them to have as many miles on their legs as we do in Portland when it comes down to it at the end of the year. And then on top of that, I think it's just an incredible opportunity for new faces to come into the league, gives more opportunity for players. There's nothing bad about having, more opportunities for more people to play in a professional league. So the only thing that's scary about it is the expansion draft, and you got to just pray and hope and cross your fingers that you're not going to be picked, or maybe you do want to be picked, but I certainly don't.
That's a day of trepidation.
Oh, definitely. I mean, for some people, I think they do want to be picked and get out of a circumstance that maybe doesn't feel right for them. But I love being in Portland, and it feels like home now. So leaving here would be disastrous. It would feel, like a whole change in my life at this point.
New teams listening, and I know you're listening, new teams, just make a note of that about Kling. But you talk about more opportunities, more players. Who doesn't want that? But there is also the flip side of that, which is articulated in a fascinating way by the mighty Midge Purse. I think on the last time she came on this podcast, expansion teams also create not a brain drain exactly, but a brain strain, diluting the existing player talent pool, stretching it across more rosters. And it's not always a bad thing. Midge, if I remember rightly, was using it to explain why this season has been so high scoring. But a lot of analysts flag it as a moment in which we threaten to dilute the quality of the league, which has historically been such a condensed cauldron of world-class talent. Kind of a vanity concern this is, as I listen to myself, to be honest. It's a great kind of problem to have. But is it a legitimate issue in your mind? You've been playing since the days of WPS when there were just 6 teams that final season. 2024 will put us up to 14 clubs. I guess the question is there a finite quantity of talent on offer?
Sorry, Mighty Midge. I politely disagree. The very best thing about soccer, in my opinion, is that it's the world's game. And we don't just take players from the 50 states, we take players from the entire world. So if we add 2 more teams, or 3 more teams, or 5 more teams, it doesn't matter, then we need to have good enough GMs and coaches to be able to scour the world and bring in the best talent. So if we aren't bringing in the best talent, if we're just relying on bringing in talent from the United States that isn't good enough, then I think that's on the coaches and on the league and on the GMs. We need to find better GMs that are able to find the talent that we need to bring into this league to create the very best week in, week out soccer product that everybody in this entire world wants to watch. Some of my favorite things is being able to play with players across different cultures. I learned so many new things. When I played abroad in Sweden, that's when I had one of my biggest growth moments as a player. And it's when I finally broke into the national team and earned a starting spot. And I really believe that if I didn't go abroad and find my own niche and surround myself with world-class players who thought about the game differently than me, then maybe I never would have gotten a chance to play on the 2015 World Cup team. And so I'm thankful that I got to go abroad and get that type of experience. But I also think you can have that type of experience at home too. I mean, we brought in Hina Sugita, a Japanese player this year who's playing on the Thorns, and she is fantastic. I didn't know much about her, but the Thorns did, and they thought that she was worth, bringing on and taking a big risk, bringing in a Japanese player who hadn't fully learned English yet. And she has been one of the brightest spots and the brightest teammates that we've brought into the locker room in a long time. So now I'm learning new things from Hina, and I'm able to continue on my journey to mastery. And that's why I still play this game. I don't play this game because I want to win or because I don't want to lose. I play this game because I love connecting with people, because it brings me a lot of joy, and because I'm on this journey to mastery that I don't think that I will ever be able to stop down that road.
Oh, Meghan Klingenberg, A Journey to Mastery. Sounds like a movie filled with wisdom that I want to watch. Talking of the US national team, we have just seen the US women qualify for the World Cup with a 5-0 victory last week over an ever-improving Jamaica in their second group stage game. Your Thorns teammate Sophia Smith just ripping in to the Jamaican back line for 2 goals. The first one, a solo stunner with the outside of her foot. What a talent she is, and you get to watch her up close in training week in, week out. Tell us what you see.
Soph, what a gem. She's only 21 years old, and she came into the league when she was 19. And so I've seen her grow from this little college sophomore to a world-class pro that she is right now. And Soph, you can't tell this when you're watching her on the pitch, but she's incredibly mature for her age. She's the type of player that, comes in, works really hard, and then goes home and literally likes to interior decorate or watch a movie or read a book or watch soccer. Like, she's not the type of 21-year-old that's wanting to go out and find the new bars or figure out what's going on in this side of town or that side of town. Soph just isn't like that. She's not interested in those types of things. But you don't find many 21-year-olds like that. I really think that attitude and that focus, that drive has helped her become the player that she is. Because 2 years ago, she never could have been doing the things that she's doing on the national team. And so to watch her slice and dice people and then have this pretty little finish, it's a patient finish. And I know that doesn't necessarily sound like, what are you talking about, Meghan? But most players would try and rip that or dribble more or do something else. But it's a patient finish in the way that it's this is the opportunity that I have, and I'm going to take it how I need to take it. And to me, that's mature. And so watching her do the things that she's doing is really amazing. And I love to think about it in the sense that this is all Sophie's journey. This is all her hard work, but I love being just a tiny little part of that journey. Making sure that I'm the hardest defender that she has to go against every single week. So then when she gets into games, she's feeling like it's a bit easier than at practice. We have a blast going 1v1 against each other, and sometimes she makes me look stupid, but I get my little toes in there every once in a while too.
Her career is still so nascent. How have you seen her develop and evolve as a Thorn?
Sophie's development has been really fast, actually. I don't think players develop as fast as Sophie has. Oftentimes you see a player come in and they're like, there's only upside. I'm going to just do my best and see what happens. And it's the joy of being a rookie, right? You're not a person yet. You don't have any reputation yet. There's nothing to lose yet. And so you can just be whoever you are in that moment. Nobody's watching you. Nobody expects anything of you. And so you come on the scene and oftentimes you light it up. And then you see the next year or the next 2 years, they're kind of like, oh, now I'm somebody. Now I have something to lose. Now they're playing from fear instead of playing from joy. And I think that Sophie went through that a little bit, but I've seen her steadily get out of that so much faster than I see most young players. And it's been such a joy to watch because I see her thinking creatively instead of fearfully now. I see her thinking confidently instead of, scared on the ball. And so I think, of course, we all have things to work on, right? But Soph has come a long way in her vision, has come a long way in selflessly promoting her and giving her other teammates passes. And it's so cool to see a young player be able to grow at the rate that she is.
The US kept going Monday night, ended up topping their group, somewhat limping over the line with a 1-0 win against a free-falling Mexico. They'll be moving on to the knockouts with automatic qualification for the 2024 Olympics on the line. They take on Costa Rica next in Thursday night semi-final. Possibly a clash with Canada awaits in the final. But Vlatko said candidly in a post-game interview last night, I think Meghan Klingenberg asked him the question, and he answered that the team is not yet World Cup ready, but they will be come 2023. And Kling, watching this tournament, US teams often seem to be less as a collective than the sum of the individuals. And you played on the national team, you've been to the World Cup, you've won a World Cup. When you watch this US team in this oddly named W tournament, what does this US team need to do to figure itself out and find that right veteran youth balance? Because it seems a little off kilter right now.
They don't have to be ready for the World Cup yet. It's not the World Cup. It's qualifying. And they did what they needed to do to qualify for the World Cup. Now they need to do what they need to do to qualify for the Olympics. And I think that's actually what makes this interesting, is that there's 2 qualifications. There's something to play for. Winning this tournament means something. It means you're going to the Olympics. And that's what all these players and what these teams want to do. So when you look at it from that perspective, yes, Vlatko, we don't need to be ready for the World Cup until the World Cup is here. But at the same time, we need to win this tournament. And so I think when I saw the roster, I was like, wow, this is really cool. It's a really young roster. He must think that all of these really young players are ready to play in these high-stakes games. And the whole problem with experience, right, is that you have to get experience to get experience. It's like this catch-22 that is sometimes used against young players. But at the same time, experience does matter. And you see that with Becky Sauerbrunn, and you see that with Megan Rapinoe. And so you bring in players like that. So the young players like Sophie Smith, like Ashley Sanchez, know what it's like and what it takes and how these players act in these environments, off the field, in practice, in the locker room. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, yes, these performances have been a little bit uninspiring to me, considering that I think some of these are the most exciting players in the NWSL. And I truly believe that they will get it together, and I have full hope for them. And I want to watch an exciting, exquisite national team that, has just as much pride going forward as they do back, working backwards in defense. But I just don't think they're there yet. And I think they will get there. I hope they get there in the next game or two, because otherwise it could be a little bit of a scary qualification event.
But when we look at the W tournament, big love to Costa Rica and Jamaica, who both qualified automatically for the World Cup, along with the United States and Canada. Panama and the incredible Haiti go to the Intercontinental Playoffs. Godspeed to them. It truly is CONCACAF Thunder, bloody heartwarming to see these smaller nations developing and finding a way in the women's game in such immense strides. In the Euros, Northern Ireland playing their first Euros ever over in England right now. Godspeed to all of them. To see these games now, every single one of them, honestly looking like a Portland Thorns home game, is the best way I can describe it. The energy, the joy, the human wonder. It's really the rare tournament for you also that you get to watch purely as a spectator with no obvious horse in the race. You can tell us, Kling, do you have a European team that you root for when no one's watching?
Actually, no. I don't have a European team that I particularly root for every time, but I am really pulling for the Netherlands this time because Mark Parsons, our previous manager, he's now the manager of Netherlands, and I really am pulling for them and pulling for him. I really want to see them do well and see my former manager do well. It's been really fun. But also, I root for Italy too because my family identifies strongly with our Italian heritage, and so we love to root for the Italians when the Americans aren't in the race.
So when you and your NWSL teammates watch these European teams, what do you see? Does it feel like the kind of football you could just jump into and pile onto a thrashing of Norway? Or are you looking at it like, wow, those teams are playing tactically a different brand of football than we do?
It's a bit of both. We love watching these games. We have it on in every room in the entire training facility. We have it in the locker room. We have it in the coaches. We have it in the treatment room. We have it in the pillar prep where we do all of our warm-ups. We're watching all the games that we possibly can. And most of the time we're just rooting for our teammates. And so for Finland, Natu Kuikka, we were watching her this morning and we were like, all right, let's go Finland. Just pulling for them. So yes, we dive all in for our teammates. We dive all in, but then we also kind of look at the tactics a bit. And we were really interested in what Germany was doing against Spain while they were playing today. And we were talking about how it was some NWSL pressure that Spain was having to deal with for possibly the first time in a few years because they haven't played the USA in a while. And it was really, really cool to watch because it put Germany up 2-0 in the first half. And then in the second half, they kind of dropped back into this 4-5-1 and just hung on for their lives.
We are just about a week into the Euros right now. We've seen each team play at least once. The major contenders starting to come into focus. England, after a slightly inhibited start against Austria in front of a ferociously massive crowd, defended their position as favourites by unleashing an 8-0 smackdown against a shell-shocked Norway, breaking the record for most goals ever scored in a women's Euro game. We had Spain, as you say, who started so strong against Finland, but looked completely out of their depth against a potent Germany, who were written off before the tournament, but looked so ferocious this afternoon. And Spain cruelly lost their star player on the eve of the tournament, current Ballon d'Or winner, Alexia Putellas. She tore her ACL right ahead of the tournament. And in your experience, Kling, you look at a team like Spain, which is so tight-knit. A large portion of their roster play together week in, week out at Barcelona. And we talk about football as a team game, a collective game. But when you lose such an individual, such a talent-soaked star as Putellas, have you experienced that from the inside? Just losing one key player can throw even the strongest team for a loop.
Last year, we lost Crystal Dunn to pregnancy. And I would argue she's one of the very best 10/8s in the league. And so our team had to come together. So I know exactly what Spain has been going through. It's one of those things, though, that can go either way. You either go, hey, we're going to come together. This is not going to break us. This is only going to make us stronger. We're going to play not only for us, but for, all of us, including this player that's injured. Or you can be like, oh, shit. our best player is injured, what are we going to do? I need to keep watching Spain because I want to see which way they're going to go. They have plenty of talent and plenty of depth. So they should be able to overcome a lot of obstacles with the group that they have, even though they lost such a great player.
Germany are not the only team who were somewhat written off ahead of the tournament, only to unleash just mighty form. France also came out the blocks with fire in their hearts with the thrashing of Meghan Klingenberg's Italy. 5 goals in the first half. It was honestly, I was in Italy watching it in a bar full of Italians. It was hard to watch. PSG midfielder Grass Gaoro with the hat-trick and an incredible stat. Gaoro has only scored 5 goals for PSG all of last season. She's a brace away from matching that after just 67 minutes of play. And to me, it's one of the many things that makes international football as magical as it is. The way players like Gaoro, who's a solid defensive midfielder at PSG, but by no means a focal point of that magical team, can just burst into the spotlight and announce herself with the world watching. And from a player perspective, what is it about international football that brings this out of different people? Is it just the fact of being on in a new culture, on a different team with a different role? Is it random chance? Or is there something about the platform and the pressure that can elevate certain players' games?
Possibly. I think it's individual to every player. But what's really interesting about this is that Amandine Henry, one of the very best sixes in the world, played with her in Portland, and I can't say enough good things about her, and then just won a Champions League final and scored a fantastic goal in that final, was not called into this Euro. And she had been captain at one point. She has, led the team to some incredible victories. So then you have Guerrero step in thinking like, hey, a lot of people don't think I should be here, And then you add on top of it, you're playing in England. You're playing in front of thousands of fans that you don't possibly play in front of every day in your club matches. There's all of this energy. There's all of this attention. And you can either embrace it and treat it with passion, or you can treat it with pressure. There's 2 different ways that we can look at this game. And I think what's really cool is that Guerrero has been treating it with passion. And you can see it and you can feel it. And I think when players treat these games with pressure, they get, kind of clammy. They play with fear. They're not their normal selves. But then when they play with passion, they, open themselves up to, vulnerability of being on this world stage, of being, putting themselves out there and giving their all, even if it might not go the way that they want it to. That is some courage right there. And so when you play with passion, you allow yourself to reach levels that you didn't even know existed.
Choose passion, dear listeners. I've got to ask you, Meghan Klingenberg, on the evidence of what we've seen so far, scant evidence to be fair, but it's time. Who's your money on to win the trophy based on not enough to really make this kind of a decision, but go for it?
That's so hard. I mean, I already hear England fans being like, it's coming home. But I just can't get behind that. I don't know, that saying just kills me. It's just like so far in the future and there's just like so much playing to go. But I really, really have enjoyed watching as much as I can. I haven't seen all of the teams, so I don't think that I could give like a fully informed opinion that I normally could. But from what I've seen and from watching Germany today, if they continue to play like they did today and just bump it up, just not even like 10 levels, just a few levels in terms of composure on the counterattack, because there was a few times when I thought that they could actually expose Spain even more if they were just a little bit more composed in the final pass. It could have been a 3-4 or 5 kind of game. Then they're going to be the toughest to beat because they're already incredibly organized defensively. They're tough. They run a lot. I mean, I know those sound like things that aren't very important, but they are. And they put pressure around the ball so fast, faster than any other team in the tournament. And so I think that if they continue to play the way that they did against Spain, they'll be very difficult to beat.
To paraphrase Kling, football is coming zu das Haus. I don't even know if that's mildly correct. I haven't done German since I was 14. But speaking of elevating each other's games, an elegant pivot into NWSL action of this past weekend, in which Gotham FC managed to snap an agonising 364-minute scoreless drought Friday night. In the course of a 2-1 victory against Racing Louisville, Paige Monahan ripping one in the 24th minute before Taylor Smith capped things off in the 80th off a laser feed from Naomi Kawasumi to score her first goal for Gotham. Not necessarily the name you'd expect to see on a Gotham score sheet, God bless, but Christy Mewis, Midge Purse and Ife Onamunu all out for international duty. Kling, it's no secret Gotham have been struggling for goals all season in what has been, across the league, a noticeably high-scoring season so far. This 2-1 victory, Gotham's highest-scoring game since their opener against Orlando. And if you're a Gotham forward watching on from international duty, does this game take the pressure off? Drought over, club back on the score sheet? Or does it put more pressure on you to keep things going when you get back?
Gosh, I hope they're feeling the pressure because they're playing the Thorns this weekend. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. It's, nice to talk a little smack every once in a while, but it's good to see a team score because that can be one of the hardest. I mean, that's why forwards get paid the big bucks, right? Because it's the hardest thing to do on the pitch. And so you might be having the very best defense, build-ups, final passing, but if you don't have that final piece, you're not going to win any games. And so sometimes it's the very last piece to come, and sometimes people might think, oh, this team's struggling, this team's doing terribly, but it might just be that final piece that is just needs a little bit of work, and maybe they found that. So I guess we'll find out this weekend whether it takes off the pressure or if the pressure's still on.
Saturday saw the first ever regular season edition of the SoCal Derby. Angel City, San Diego Wave, and it was Angel City who came out with the points after a 2-1 win. Ali Riley, Angel City captain, really an old school veteran of the WPS, one of my favourite players, scoring her first ever league goal on American soil to get Angel City an early lead. A lot of people were quick to point out on Twitter that the crowd noise at Angel City is sometimes dampened on the broadcast. That remarkable sold-out crowd of 22,000 is deafening in person. And Kling, you played at Angel City, and you play week in, week out in Portland, another place in the league right now where you have truly massive crowds. And as a player, do you learn to drown it all out on the field, or does that energy transform the adrenaline and performance of the home team and diminish that of the opponents?
When it becomes 22,000 people, it really doesn't matter if you're on the home team or if you're on the away team. And I actually think that sometimes in Portland, it's a disadvantage because players come there, they feel all of this energy that maybe they're not getting in some of their home clubs. And you can't necessarily hear people yell individual rude things or mean things to you because it's too loud. You just feel the energy. And when you're feeling that energy, I mean, it's a boon whether it's for you or not. So when I'm at Bank of California Stadium playing against LA, I just think that it's for me. And I know for a fact it's not for me. But I don't care because it's so loud anyways that it's just a blast. I mean, it's so much fun. And maybe I'll show up at Bank of California now and they're going to have signs that are like, Klingenberg, this is not for you. Boo, like they're going to be booing me every time I touch the ball. But like, I don't really care because it's just so much fun that I just have a blast. And I hope that's the way that other players feel too. When they come to Providence Park, because like I said, I want their best. I want their best because that's the most fun is when everybody's playing at their best. But quite frankly, I mean, the crowds are amazing, right? But to me, the highlight of the match was Jennifer Garner passing out orange slices after the match. I mean, that is true world-class soccer momming right there. And it just makes me feel so much joy about soccer in general because, I mean, we're going back to childhood, right? If we could all just channel our inner child and play with our inner child, like, imagine how good these matches could be. And I love how Jennifer Garner, I don't even know if she's consciously doing this, but maybe she is, maybe she isn't, but she's tapping into that childlike playfulness of soccer and bringing that onto the pitch for those players. And that's pretty much the coolest thing that you could ever do for them.
And as a player, when you see that, what do you think?
I think, where's my soccer mom with my orange feels?
Timber Joey, get on it, would you, mate? You know, I love that approach to life, though. It's not just an approach to football. Treat the cheers as if they're always for you, and then everything is possible. Talking about anything is possible, the Red Stars extended their unbeaten streak on Sunday with a truly Houdini-esque stoppage time 2-goal comeback against the Courage. Chicago now sitting second, 1 point off San Diego at the top. But the highlight of the weekend, and this is objective, I'm sure all of our listeners agree, Meghan Klingenberg 60th minute assist on Sunday against OL Reign. That literally inch-perfect cross that you launched into the box for Hina Sugita to tap home to give Thorns a temporary lead in what ended a very tight 2-2 draw. Can you give us a peek behind the curtain here, Meghan? What calculations are you making mentally before you send a ball into the box like that?
I mean, yes, you're so objective, huh?
Always. I would have asked anyone. No, honestly, I would have done. Anyone.
Oh, that's funny.
Coincidence.
You know, what's funny about things like that is you're not even doing calculations. I actually try not to think while I play. When I'm thinking about playing, then I'm not playing. And so I just play. When I look up and I see Hina on the back post, I'm just like, Hina's on the back post. And then, try and get it there as best I can. The interesting part about it, though, is, as you know, I usually play left back. And in this game, I was playing right back. So I usually make that cross with my right foot. And so making it with my left foot was like a reverse mirror. And it's a lot, I mean, I know it doesn't seem different, but playing right side to left side is it's a lot more different than you think because all of your footwork is differently. The way that you're defending is completely reversed. Especially when you're defending in the box, it makes it a lot harder. And then on top of that, the crossing, everything's backwards, right? So I'm using my right foot down the end line and then left foot top of the box. And so thank God I didn't think about it, because if I did, I feel like I would have shanked it probably into the three players that were right in front of Hina.
I love that you don't even think. I've interviewed both James Ward-Prowse and David Beckham about their free kick techniques. And there was an article before I'd interviewed Beckham about how a nuclear physicist revealed that David Beckham, the calculations he's essentially making of wind and trajectory and wall and goalkeeper positioning means that he can calculate space and time with the processing of an elite nuclear physicist. And I kind of unfurled that rather lengthy background to the question and said, how do you do those calculations so quickly? And both he and James Ward-Prowse said pretty well the same thing as you did, which was, I don't really think, to be honest. I just kind of hit it. Often in life, just hitting it is the winning way. Talking about winners, Kim Little in the lineup again on Sunday for OL Reign. Tobin Heath on the bench, but did not get off to make her first appearance since her return. I cannot wait to see Tobin Heath back on the field in the United States. One last highlight, AD French with some unbelievable goalkeeping heroics to hold on to Kansas City's win against Washington Spirit. She conceded a penalty in stoppage time and then blocked aforementioned penalty in the 93rd minute and then dove headfirst into oncoming traffic to fend off the rebound. It was bloody amazing. Kansas City on the up and up. Washington Spirit, on the other hand, still on the world's saddest slip and slide. Now 11th in the table, having played 3 more games than last place North Carolina Courage. And I do ache for that Washington Spirit team who came into the year on such a high, defending champions, Challenge Cup runners-up, incredible new ownership, but just have not been able to catch a break so far this season. Meghan, when your team has a slump like this, how much of a toll does it take psychologically on you as a player?
It certainly takes a toll. I mean, nobody likes to lose. It's just about how fast you can forget about that losing, or how fast you can pivot the loss into a growth moment or a learning opportunity, because that's all it really is. Okay, is this team about resilience? Is this team about bravery? Is this team about, passion? Or is it about winning? And I think when your team is about winning and you start losing, then that whole culture can come crashing down. But when your team's about passion and bravery and resilience, then you can keep working on things and turn your season around. So it's just up to the players in the locker room deciding how they want it to be, because they have all of the talent to make it happen. They have, it seems like the leadership structure to make it happen now. And so it's up to those players to choose, like, are we this culture that is about, outcomes and winning, or are we this culture that's about resilience and passion and, playing this game for fun? And I think once you decide who the hell you want to be, then you start to see those results.
In the week ahead, on the football field, honestly, way too much going into this weekend, even to attempt to preview all of it. The Euros finish up the group stage this weekend. Women's Africa Cup of Nations in the quarterfinals right now. Semi-finals on Sunday. Copa America Femenina underway in Colombia. And on Thursday, the US women contest their semi-final against Costa Rica, 7 p.m. Eastern, looking for a place in the final and an automatic qualification into the next Olympics. I love all these bonus, not just winning, but getting into the final and then winning a qualification. Oh, it's just wheels within wheels. That match and the rest of the CONCACAF W Championship streaming where? On Paramount Plus. Visit paramountplus.com/glory. An entire month free on us. And last but not least, back home in our beloved NWSL, the action never stops. Catch Mighty Kling and her Portland Thorns when they go toe-to-toe with Gotham. Saturday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Also streaming on good old PP. Meghan Klingenberg, it is time to sign off for the week. I always feel so much better about life, about the world after listening to you. And I want to give you the last word. As is traditional on this podcast, it's been a bloody hard month in this nation. It's been an awful, awful month in the world, just full of challenge and sadness. Somehow I kind of feel like this tactic we use to close these podcasts is not working. But tell us something, big or small, that's brought you comfort or joy this week.
Just imagine if we weren't doing this at the end of the podcast. I think that's the way that you need to start thinking about this. What if we're not doing the most joyful part of your week at the end of the podcast? What would the world look like then, Raj?
Oh my God. When you look at it like that, I can't even imagine the answer to that question, Kling, but give us some joy.
I have two things. All right. First thing, because, I'm going to add a little extra, sprinkle a little extra joy on the week, is that it's berry season. And that means fresh berries, Marion berries, blueberries, raspberries are ready to be picked in Oregon. And when it's berry season, that means it is pie season. And so I'm a very happy lady here in Oregon.
You had me at berry, but then you had to bring the pie. I'm just Pavlov's dog here on the pod right now. But number two, bring us home, Meghan.
Number two is I still keep in touch with Anton Dorrance. He's my college coach from UNC.
A legend.
And a legend, yes. But, when you get to know the legends, you get to know that they're just kind of people. And he happens to be a really awesome one that I love and really appreciate. And so we started a book club this past month, just us two. And we're reading a book together. And he might not know it, but it means the absolute world to me that we're reading this book together. And it brings me so much joy to connect with my college coach in this way that I haven't connected with him since I was in college. So it's bringing me back a little bit. And I just want him to know how grateful I am.
That is absolutely beautiful. A book club made for two. Can I ask you what the book is?
Yeah, we're currently reading Brené Brown, Atlas of the Heart.
Double B, just a classic written by one of America's greatest Liverpool fans, Brené Brown. What an incredible human being she is, despite
You would know
Liverpool fandom. Yeah, I wanted to come on the show. She is an incredible human being. I didn't know she actually wrote books. The only books I know about are Abby Wambach's autobiography, Brandy Chastain's autobiography, Megan Rapinoe's autobiography. Oh, and possibly the greatest modern classic, Brianna Scurry's autobiography, which just came out. Pick up a copy because the story is amazing. God love to you and to the mighty, mighty Anson. And to you, Meghan Klingenberg, we have reached the end of the women's game. It truly is my joy of the week to be with you. Thanks to you and Godspeed.
Thank you, Raj. That was a blast.
We will be back next Thursday. And to all of you in America, courage.